this is BioPhoenix here, and today we finally get to talk about a game that I've always mentioned within some of my videos, and that happens to be the Tonelico series. Yes, not Tonelico, Tonelico. Before I knew how to actually pronounce it, that's what I used to think it was. And we're going to take a look at the entire series so far, and for this part, we're only going to take a look at 1 and 2. So before I talk about the first game, I'm going to mention a couple of things about the series in general. All of them are RPGs that were released for PlayStation consoles, and they all happen to have a male protagonist, and I have a choice to choose between 2 female love interests for the story. And the race of the female characters in the games are known as Ravatails. And what a Ravatail is that they are a race that can use sound as power, and that power being called song magic. And the game has its own made-up language, which is called Hymnos. In fact, they even make songs within the game using this Hymnos language. I will explain a little bit more on that later. And there's like a fuck ton of other things I could have mentioned, like, you know, the different types of Ravatail, the different types of song magic, and the Hymnos and all that type of stuff, but the thing is, it would take way too damn long for me to explain all this. And there's a good chance that if you have not played this game, then you probably don't even care about that stuff. Because it's not really the most important part of the game, but it is there for you to know and understand while you are playing the game. But it is definitely interesting, and as much as I'd like to talk about it, sadly I won't. But like I said, it would just take way too damn long, so either way, I just recommend you guys to look it up yourselves if you really are that interested into it. So anyways, without further ado, let's take a look at the first game in the series, which is Tonelico Melody of Alemia, which is only on the PlayStation 2 and it was released in North America on 2007, making this a very late entry to the PlayStation 2 library. I mean, this game could have been released on the PlayStation 3 if they really wanted it to, but I guess for cheaper ideas, they just wanted to stick it on PS2. Besides, the PS2 is a great console after all. And the game was developed by Gus and Bren Presto, who did a collaboration for this game, and it was published by NIS America, or known as NISA. Now, one thing that did amuse me is that in the Japanese title, the game is called Tonelico, the girl who continues to sing to the end of the world. Well, it's a pretty damn long title, so I can see why they changed it. So anyways, let's take a look at the story first. So it takes place in a world called Solciel, and the world is divided in two, with the center of the world is a tower called the Tower of Tonelico. So higher up on the tower is a place called Platina, and that is where the main character Liner is born. And the lower world is known as the Wings of Horus, and that is where a lot of small towns that are not technologically advanced, at least compared to Platina, but there are some people that believe that the Holy Land is Platina. Just thought I'd talk about a little bit of the world, you know? So now, the main character you use is named Liner Barset. He is a knight of Alemia who fights for Platina, and his father Liard is the main government of Platina. And he always wants his son to change from being a knight and go into government stuff. And I have to agree with Liner on this one because, well, government stuff is just really boring. So on one very unlucky day, the city of Platina is being attacked by a bunch of viruses. So Liner and his comrade buddy, Ayatane, who becomes a playable character later on, are trying to fight out the viruses, but they can't because the viruses are just way too powerful. So they retreat with the administrator of Platina, who is known as Lady Shiralia. Now Shiralia is a very interesting character, but you don't really get to know too much about her at the beginning, considering you don't even get to see her face at all. But she is a very important Ravatail character. So Ayatane gets screwed over by the viruses, and now Lady Shiralia wants Liner to go to the lower world to look for something called the Hymn Crystal Purger. So after when Liner gets onto his airship, he ends up crashing it because, well, I guess he's an idiot and doesn't know how to fly it. So after crashing it, he just passed out on the ground, and then some random Ravatail named Orica happens to heal him, and then leaves. Now, Orica is one of the main female characters within this game that you can choose to have a love interest with. And what you need to know about her is that she works for the Church of Alemia in hopes in wanting to become one of the Holy Maidens, but she always doubts herself because she's considered as a Class D Ravatail. Now, I do like her character, but every time she brings up something about, oh, I'm a Class D Ravatail, that means I can't do shit, it just really annoys me because it's like, okay, come on, you just blew up some motherfuckers, like, how can you not do shit? But yeah, that's only at first, but later on in the game, she does become more of a happier character. So Liner ends up meeting someone named Jack Hamilton, who is, by the way, my favorite character within this entire game, and all I have to say is that, at first, he comes off as an asshole. And then, he is still kind of an asshole, but a funny and awesome asshole. I just find him to be really funny. Also, his character design is pretty awesome looking. But he's a treasure hunter who is looking for someone that he once knew 6 years ago, and he doesn't give a shit about what anyone thinks about him, which I think is great. And eventually, Liner gets captured by the Temba Corporation, who are a bunch of pricks, and a Raventail named Misha helps you escape, and she is the other love interest that you can pick within this game. And Misha claims to have known Liner for a long time, but Liner can't remember anything about that. But she is a very composed character who also likes to act childish at times, and she doesn't hesitate to mess around with Liner, which I think is funny. And then there's two other playable characters, such as Cruce. And Cruce is a Graph Elder specializing in airships, and she was always wondering about where her boyfriend Luke went off to. But most likely the most amusing thing about her is that the weapon she uses is a fucking chainsaw. Yeah, a little bit excessive, but you know what? It's at least awesome. And finally, there is a character named Radolf, who is a cardinal of the Church of Alemia, and he's always supportive for Orica, and that's really all about it I have to say about him. Yeah, unfortunately his character isn't really all that developed, which kinda sucks, but whatever. He's my least favorite anyways. And yeah, there's a lot of other stuff about the story I could explain about, the whole Tembo Corporation getting into a war with the Alemia Church, and the whole Teru tribe situation. But I think I explained enough about the story, because this game is an RPG, as you know, and I don't really want to go into a whole lot of detail when it comes to story, because the story is actually pretty damn good. And I don't want any spoilers at all, which is something I tried to do in my videos, is not to have spoilers. But yeah, I really like the story, the characters, the settings, and the history of the world of Soul CL, which I find to be really interesting. So for now, let's talk about the gameplay. So for the dungeon exploring, you can move around and you can jump, and you can attack with element spells like fire, wind, electricity, and ice. And what the attacking does in the dungeons is to either flick switches or destroy broken objects. And there's a random encounter rate in this game, but you do have a bar that indicates like when you're coming close to an enemy when it flashes different colors. And when the gauges go all the way down, then you don't have to worry about running into any enemies at all. But if you leave a dungeon and then come back, then it'll refill again. And as for the towns in the game, all you have to do is just select a menu of what area of the town you want to go to, and then when you click on that area, then you can walk around and buy stuff or sell stuff and all that stuff. Man, is that enough stuff for you? And as for the battle system in this game, it's a simple turn-based RPG. So you have attack, item, special, run, all that good stuff. And you can only have a party of 4, where 3 of them has to be vanguards, which are known as, Liner, Jack, Cruce, Radolf, and Ayatane. And in the back, you have to choose your Raventail, which can be Misha, Orica, or Shiralia. And when you first enter a battle with a Raventail, you have to choose a song magic to charge. Well, you don't have to, but it's a good thing to do for most battles. And every turn, the charge will go stronger each time. And at any given time, you can choose to unleash this song magic, which can either be like a powerful attack or a support item. And the Raventail cannot be attacked directly, unless there are certain enemies that can do an attack that can automatically hit them with circles that will go around her. But to save yourself from that is that you have to go to defend, for each circle represents each character having to pick a defend option. And sometimes if you defend successfully, you can do a counter attack. But just to let you know, you can't keep on charging it forever because her MP will go down, and if it goes down to 0, then the whole thing is just cancelled. So you have to make sure to use it before your MP is drained. And as for the Vanguard characters, they don't have an MP bar, but they do have special attacks, and when you use them, it just takes a little bit of your health. And at the end of each battle, you get a grade, and you get all the good stuff, like experience, money, items, all that good stuff. Also, you get dive points. Now let me explain what dive points are used for. So, when you go into a store called a dive shop, you can dive into a character's mind, and their minds are called a cosmosphere, and in the cosmosphere all you have to do is just go around in a map, and this is where the game kind of turns into like a visual novel sort of thing, where you make choices to make within the Raventail. So pretty much what you're doing is that you have to help them out with their inner mind with certain situations. So yeah, you're not like dating them or trying to eat their pussy or whatever, but you're just helping them out getting through some of the shit that they've been through. And there are many layers within the mind, and the more layers you go through, the more powerful song magic you can get. Now as for the dive points, basically what you do with them is that every time you access an area within the cosmosphere, it takes up dive points, and of course certain Choices you make will take away dive points depending on what it is. And yes, when you complete all layers, yeah, you pretty much are dating the Raventail that you want, and are most likely to get the ending for them. So there is a bit of a dating sim to this game, but it's nothing crazy over the top or just plain dumb. But yes, there is a bit of fan service in this game, but not a whole lot of it. I mean, I'd say this game is pretty damn tame compared to most other games that I've played, but it does have a lot of innuendo jokes, which are always funny. Also, another reason how you can get to know the Raventail more is to do talk topics. So every time you go into an inn and go rest, you can have a chance to talk to one of the Raventails. Some of the conversations can be pretty amusing, and some of it can be just, you know, typical everyday shit. But the more you fill up, the more chances that you can get into the higher levels of diving. So I figured I'd mention that before ending the thing about diving. So yeah, there's a lot more stuff about the Cosmosphere of like why it exists and such, but I'm not gonna get into that. But yes, it's mostly about getting more and stronger attacks. And you can create items in this game, which is called graph melding, where you have to mix certain items with other items to make this one new item, and sometimes it can be kind of annoying to try to get certain items, especially the ones that are mandatory for the story. But whenever I see an ingredients card, just buy it anyways, because you'll need all the ones that you'll get. So yeah, there's not really a whole lot else I can talk about, but all I have to say is that it seems really simple, but there is a lot of complicated aspects to it. But nothing too complicated for newer fans that wanting to get into RPGs. And believe it or not, this game is actually not that hard at all. It's actually pretty easy for an RPG, but of course, the last boss in this game is a fucking bitch, but that's to be expected. But other than that, it's really just a lighthearted RPG with a really big story. So for now, let's talk about other things like the graphics. And as you can tell, the game is in 2D, but for a 2D game on a PS2, it actually looks pretty good. I really like it myself. I really don't have much complaints about the graphics, but I do think they look nice the way they are. But also, as of course, I really like the character designs. So it's all well and good here. And as for the music, well, it's definitely one of the most fantastic things I've ever heard in my life. Okay, I don't know if it's like the best thing I ever heard, but it's definitely amazing. So yes, you get your typical background music, which sounds really good, by the way. There's a lot of catchy songs, a lot of the songs suit the theme of what's going on, but the part of the music that amazes me the most is the Hymnos songs. These are songs that have lyrics in them, but the lyrics are written in the Hymnos language that was made up in the game. Not only is that pretty damn creative, but holy shit, the songs are epic. I'll just play an example of one for you right now. Yeah, I love this shit. It's definitely one of the most fascinating things I ever heard within a video game. And all I have to say is that I really recommend you guys listen to the OST. I don't care if you don't like this game or if you don't like RPGs in general, you just have to listen to it. It's at least worth looking into, at least for the music. And I would definitely love to have the OST for this game one day. So overall for the music, yeah, fucking fantastic. And as for the voice acting in this game, I think it's pretty good. So Liner is being played by an unknown voice actor, or at least I don't know the name of it because it hasn't been public, but I think it sounds alright. I mean, it's not like the most greatest thing ever, but I think for a main character, it's okay. And, well, weirdly enough, I can at least say that it is better than the Japanese voice for him, because the Japanese voice, well, I may not be able to say how good it actually is, but it definitely sounds fucking irritating as shit. Also, weirdly enough, I find Liner sounds very similar to Hero from Lunar 2 Eternal Blue.
Dodge this! Hey, how'd you learn to talk so smoothly?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just me, but I find they sound pretty damn similar. And then you have Carrie Walgren playing Orica, and I think she does a pretty decent job. And then there's Misha, who is being played by Karen Strassman, and I think that is awesome, because I love Karen Strassman. I think she's amazing at what she does. And as for Radolf, the most lamest character within this game, he's being played by Vic Mignogna, which I think is pretty damn cool. Although, unfortunately, he happens to play a lame character, but you know what, whatever. At least he makes that interesting. And then there's Jack Hamilton, who is being played by Spike Spencer, Professor, who I think is an awesome voice actor, and especially really suiting for Jack. So that right there makes me really damn happy. And then Crucia is being played by Jessica Strauss. Now, she is a good voice actor, but I think her role for this one is not the greatest, but it's okay. I mean, it's tolerable, but I think it could have been much better. And then you have Ayatane, who is being played by Liam O'Brien, which is just awesome, because, well, Liam O'Brien, you can't go wrong with him. He's fucking awesome. And there's many other great ones, such as Richard Epcard, Wendy Lee, Kirk Thornton, Jameson Pierce, and many others. So yeah, this game does have a pretty solid cast. Now, if you want to buy this game, it costs around from $40 to about as high as, well, apparently $100. But the $100 game has the Collector's Edition, which has the art book and the OST and many other things. But if you're just looking at the standalone game with the box and manual, it's about $40 to $60. And I don't see it around too often. In fact, the only time I've ever have seen it, it was for $40 sealed, which is pretty damn good if I say so myself, at least compared to now, where now it's all like $60 for a brand new one. So this one might be a bit much for some people, but if you really want to get into it, I will at least say I was at least happy with the price I paid. But one thing I will want to mention that is really unfortunate is that the European version of this game is even more rare, because it was only released there in certain countries and they didn't make many copies of them, so yeah, kind of unfortunate they had to be missing out on a great game. But in North America, it's not like a crazy rare game, but it isn't a common game either. I would at least say it's uncommon. Now, if I were to rate this game, I'd have to give it an 8 out of 10. It's a pretty damn good RPG. Sure, the game may be easy, but it at least has a very interesting story and characters, and has some wonderful music. Now, when I first played this game, I just fell in love with it, and I used to think it was like one of the best RPGs I've played on the system, but now overthinking it, no, it's not the best RPG on the system, but it is definitely a damn good one that I do try to recommend to people, because it seems like a lot of people tend to forget about this game a lot of the times. But I don't want to be biased here, so I'm giving it an 8 because I do think it is generally a good, well-rounded game, and is definitely a great start to a series. So there's not a whole lot else to say about this game, but we gotta get moving on to start talking about Tonelico 2, Melody of Malafalica. And this game was developed and published by the same companies that did the first one, and it was released in 2009 for the PlayStation 2. Damn, now we're getting really late into the PlayStation 2 lifespan. So for now, let's talk about the story first. So it takes place in the same kind of setting as the first game, but this time we're in an area called RCL. Although this time the world looks more like a ball with a tower inside it. It's kind of weird to describe. But it takes place a year and a half after the first game. So it seems like the main issue within this game is that a whole bunch of Raventails are getting infected by a thing called IPD. And what this disease does is that you end up going insane and you end up like killing yourself and killing other people around you. And only Raventails can get it. I don't know, it's the easiest way to explain it. So as the main character, Croy, and he is a Knight of the Grand Bell who always goes on missions to having to put down some of Raventails that happen to be infected by IPD. But he doesn't like doing that. But he does it anyway because he has no other choice. And all I have to say about Croy as a character is that for a main character, he's kinda lame. Now yeah, he does look cool. In fact, I really do like his character design, but it just sucks. He doesn't really do much. All he does is just like, yes sir, or no ma'am, or uh-huh, or whatever. It's really nothing that much. I guess you could say he just really likes to go with the flow, but even then, it's just kind of boring. And then there's Coconut, who is Croy's adopted sister, and he adopted her because he saved her life before. But she's just a cheerful girl who just always wants to be a Raventail so she can help out Croy more. So yeah, she is female, but she plays more as a vanguard than anything. And then there's Lady Cloche, who is one of the Raventail love interests you can get in the game. And all I have to say about her is that she is a bossy, uptight fucking bitch. But only at first. Later on, she does become more happier and cheerful, like, and you do realize some other things, like she really likes kids, and she also likes stuffed animals. And other than the cool character design, I still think she's a fucking bitch. Sorry, but she really fucking annoys me in this game. But then again, she is the Holy Maiden of the Grand Bell, so yeah, I guess you can suspect her to be really snobby-like. And then there's Leglius, who is a giant purple guy who is the captain of the Grand Bell Knights. Also, he helps out Croy a lot. So because he's the captain of the Grand Bell Knights, he's always trying to focus more on his mission than anything else. But eventually, he does have some soft feelings about the people around him. You know, it's kinda sad that this guy is even more developed than Croy. Or another way, I think Leglius is pretty fucking cool. And then there's Luca, who is the other Raventail you can go after. And just like Misha from the first game, she was best friends with the main character at a young age. and she works as a dive therapist and knows everything about diving, and it seems like that every time that she mentions this, people think she's like a hooker or something. Now that right there is just fucking mean, I tell ya. And as cheerful as she is, she also does have a lot of deep dark secrets that she never reveals. Well, until later on in the game, but you know, you guys have to play that yourselves to figure that out. And then there's Armory, who is an adventurer who just likes to travel around with something called soup, which is pretty much like this weird pillow-looking weird thing. Seriously, whatever the fuck soup is supposed to be, it makes this weird sound where it almost sounds like it says poop poop poop, although it's just a lot more high pitch. And she really likes to mess around with a lot of people like Legolas and even some guy named Chester. Yeah, she's kind of a Kruger, I guess. Well, I mean a cougar because, you know, if she was a Kruger, that means she would kill people in their sleep. And then there's two other characters that you get later on, and this one is Shun. What Shun is this wolf guy who likes to call himself the Servant of God. Ooh. And then finally there's Jackley, who is the third Raventail you can get, and she's kinda almost like Shrelia in this case. Mainly because she knows a lot of things about the Tower of Tonelico and stuff. So that's all I really have to say about main characters, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this story. In fact, I always get confused with a lot of shit that happens. Like, I know there's this whole thing about the Grand Bells going into war against the Sacred Army, and then some crazy guy using the power of a goddess to shoot laser beams out of the sky, and even this really weird fucked up part where you have to go to this weird other planet thing that opens up from the tower, and it's, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but all I have to say is that it's just fucking weird. So yeah, I'm not gonna get too much into that, but oh man, I haven't even scratched the surface of anything yet, because now I have to talk about the gameplay, and man, let me tell you, there's definitely a lot of changes within this one. So the way how you explore the towns is exactly the same thing as the first one, so nothing much to say about that. And as for exploring the dungeons, it's almost the same thing, but the difference is that you can't shoot like things at walls anymore, or you can't jump either. Meaning that the dungeon designs are a lot more flat this time. The talk topics is still the same, creating items is a little bit different, but you know, it's still basic same shit. And as for the diving, yeah, it is typically the same thing, but man, they made it really damn confusing in this one, where there's a lot of explanations about it, and yeah, I'm not gonna get into that. Yeah, they really made the diving in this game a lot more in-depth this time around. And it's not a bad thing at all, but it's just really hard to explain it well. And before I talk about the battle system, because that's gonna take a while to do, now you get a radar that indicates IPD-infected Raventails that you can randomly find. And after finding them and beating them up, you can go back to the dive shop and you can cure their IPD-ness, but it's really hard to do. You just gotta answer them some questions, but it's really hard to figure out what they would like and what they would dislike. It kinda reminds me of the whole thing with Shin Megami Tensei Soul Hackers, where every time you're trying to recruit demons to your party, it just depends on what they say. And you just never know what they're gonna say, but either way though, it kinda reminds me of that. Okay, so now, the battle system. Now, there's a lot of shit that I can talk about the battle system, but to keep it short, yes, it is a lot different from the first one, where yeah, it is turn-based, but this time, your turn is on a time limit, and you have to attack the enemy as much times as you can within the time, or using an item or whatnot, and after the time is up, it's your enemy's turn, it's the same thing for them, but this time you're trying to defend, and let me tell you, defending in this game is not as easy as you'd think. Now you just have to match up the line together, but it's really hard to do because it's really precise. So if you get it exactly on the line, you take no damage whatsoever, but if you go like a little bit before or after, then you'll take damage, or you and the Raventail will take damage. Although there is a certain rhythm to it, and sometimes you'll actually get onto this rhythm pretty quickly, so it's not impossibly hard, but it just takes some time to get used to. And charging up the Song Magic attack with the Raventails is still the same as the first one. But this time you can only have 4 people in your party, and the 4 is that 2 Raventails and 2 Vanguards. And you attack with each character with either X or square. Now, if you press up on the D-pad and attack with a character, their attack will become even better. But you can only do that after Phase 1, after discovering something called Repelkia. No, not Pelkia from Pokemon, but Repelkia. So like I said, it increases the power of the Vanguards, and also charges up the Song Magic faster. And yes, Vanguards also have a super special attack too, but yeah, okay, you know what, I'm gonna stop right here because there's a lot of shit I can talk about with the battle system, but I think you get the main idea. But to get the basic of it, it's turn-based, you have to mash buttons, you also have to go into a complete rhythm to defend yourself, and also you can just blast magic at people. Now I think the battle system is alright, but man, they make it seem a lot more complicated than it actually is. And most definitely, I prefer the battle system of the first game because not only is it easy to understand, but it's actually fun. So yeah, there is a lot of changes, but it does have some similarities to the first one's battle system, but not really. But one more thing I will explain, but not really about the battle system, but this new system they made called Dual Stall. So every time you find something called Dual Note Crystals, you can get the Raventails to go take a bath, and whenever time they go over certain areas, they will get stronger within getting more HP, MP, defense, and whatnot. Yeah, that's right, you heard me. Taking a bath makes you stronger. Man, I wish that happened in real life. And then sometimes there are some funny conversations that happen within the bath, but yeah, either way, this part is just weird. And speaking of weird shit, probably the worst part about this entire game is that there's this really weird glitch bug thing that's in the game, and for some odd reason, it's only in the North American version, not the Europe version, or not even in the Japanese version. I have no idea how the fuck this would have happened, but either way, this is what I've been told what the glitch is. Because I can never get to the part where it happens. So there's this one boss that every time when it tries to do an attack after a certain amount of turns have passed, it just freezes your game. I don't know the exact reason why it freezes your game, but it just fucking sucks. But I have heard it is possible to beat the boss like fast enough before it uses that attack that freezes your game. And unfortunately I don't know how to do that because, well, like I said, I never got to that part before because I believe it's near the end of the game. But I can say one thing is that if I didn't know about this, I definitely would have been really fucking pissed off. So as far as I can tell, that's really the only game-breaking bug that's in the game, which really sucks, because if it didn't have that, this game would have been a hell of a lot better. So yeah, that's enough about the gameplay. So overall, all I have to say about the gameplay is that it does have some good things, but it also has some bad things. So for now, let's talk about graphics, and all I have to say about them is that they still use 2D graphics, which is all fun and dandy. I think it looks a little bit better and more clear in this one compared to the first game, so it is at least a better improvement on that. But other than that, I have no complaints. And as for the music, well, as far as I can tell, it definitely does not disappoint compared to the first game. It still has a lot of catchy songs, a lot of awesome sounding songs, and of course, it still has those kick-ass hymno songs. In fact, I find the song EXEC, Syphilia, I believe it's called, really reminds me of a Dream Theater song for some reason. Either way, I think that's fucking awesome. So yes, just like the first game, it's fucking fantastic. Now as for the voice acting, well, let me go through some of the cast first and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So the character Croy is being played by Daryl Gaibu, I believe is pronounced. And all I have to say is that his voice isn't good, but it's not bad either. So not really a whole much to say about that, but, you know, it's just like the character Croy because there's not much to say about him either because he's so bland and boring. And then Luca is being played by Laura Bailey, and I think that she does a really good job of her voice. And this is probably one of my favorite roles as her. Not the best one, but definitely one of the better ones. And then Lady Cloche is being played by Kate Higgins, and I think the voice is very suiting for her. You know, it sounds very bitch and snobby-like. Also, I find Kate Higgins usually does a pretty good job anyway, so yeah, that's pretty good. And then the character Jack Lee is being played by Wendy Lee, which is usually a pretty good thing. And then Coconut is being played by Karen Strassman. Nothing more I need to say about that because she's awesome. And then Leglius is being played by Mike Vaughn, who is pretty underrated and doesn't really have a lot of roles, but I think his voice here is okay. I mean, it's not the greatest thing ever, but it's definitely not the worst thing ever. But funny enough, he is most notably known for playing Ludwig and Iggy from New Super Mario Bros. And Super Smash Bros. On the Wii U and 3DS. so I found that to be pretty amusing. And then Armory is being played by Michelle Dunphy. I think she does a pretty good job here, but I think overall her voice is just okay, but definitely not the worst thing ever. And then finally I'll say Shun is being played by, well, I don't know the voice actor, but apparently on the Wikipedia it says that he is voiced by Nolan North, and I call bullshit on that because it sounds nothing like him. But on the usual site that I use to look up voice actors, which is called Behind the Voice Actor Studio, usually they're a lot more accurate with their stuff. So yeah, a lot of the extra voices, well, they're okay, but not bad, but not good either. So as for the voice cast overall, it has some good moments, but for the most part, it's not really all that great. But one thing that really sucks is that you don't even get to hear the voices that often. I think they're running on a budget on this one. So even with a lot of the good moments, you don't even hear them that often. In fact, I could have sworn that in the entire thing of Phase 3, which is basically Chapter 3, there is no part in that phase whatsoever that has voices in it. So that kinda sucks, but either way, it does have some very little good moments, well, when they actually do happen, but as for the rest, not much else to say. Now as for the price for this game usually costs around $35 to $50. Well, at least that's a little bit better than paying the price for the first game. And yet again, I got pretty lucky with this one where I only paid like $25 for this one. But still, I don't see this game too often, and as for the collector's edition, yeah, good luck trying to get that for a decent price. But as again, just like the first one, it's not extremely rare, but it's also not common either. And now as for the score, I'm gonna have to give this one a 6 out of 10. Yeah, it really pains me to give it that, but either way, to me, giving it a 6 isn't necessarily a bad score, but it is definitely more disappointing compared to the first one. And I definitely don't think the game is a piece of turd, not at all. In fact, there's a lot of things about it that I really like. Now, some of the characters I really like, such as Luca, Kokoda, Leglius, and even Shun is pretty damn cool too. Also, Jack Lee is a pretty interesting character as well. And as I already said about the graphics and the music, I think they're really good. Especially the music, man, the music is just fantastic. Definitely the best part of this one. And of course, one of the worst things about this game is that damn glitch bug thing that happens near the end of the game. In fact, that's the biggest flaw within this game, and one of the main reasons why I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. Because I originally was thinking about giving this one a 7, but then I remembered that. So yeah, that's a pretty damn shame. Also, the story in this one is good, but I don't like it as much as the story within the first game, but it still is a pretty decent story. So this one is pretty hard to recommend to people, but I can at least say is that the first one is definitely the best one so far. And just from what I've looked up randomly is that it seems like I'm in the minority here, where there's a lot of sites that give this game like a 7 or an 8 out of 10, which is kinda odd to think about because, you know, I thought other journalist sites would be a lot more harsh on this game than I would be. But either way, it's a decent game, but there are some issues. So that's all I have to say about Tonelico 2. So now that's pretty much the end of part 1 of the Tonelico feature. So stay tuned for part 2, and we'll be taking a look at Tonelico 3 and Arto Surge on the PlayStation 3. So, I'll be back.
Free XP!